Harold was left jobless when his company folded. Desperate, he pleaded with his uncle and managed to get a position at his uncle's company. A year later, I received a photo and a message on my mobile phone from Harold's mistress. "I'm Harold's lover. Can't wait to live together." Ignoring the message, I came home from work the next day to find most of the furniture gone. A note left on the kitchen counter was penned in Harold's handwriting. "I moved to Natalie's place." I called Harold. "Where are you? Maybe I should hire you?" The sugary voice likely belonged to Natalie. "If you're okay being a housekeeper, I'll give you the address." Natalie seemed to be under a major misunderstanding. "Then, it's divorce with Harold, who only earns $8 an hour. If you want to talk in your sleep." Ah, she knows nothing. Poor thing. I told her I'd contact her once the divorce preparations were complete, then hung up. Just you watch. Soon, I'll plunge you from the height of happiness to the depths of despair. I am Michelle, a 50-year-old working mother. I work for the company run by my uncle. I met Harold, my husband of 20 years, at a gathering among friends. He seemed like a great guy, and after he approached me as we were leaving, we started dating after meeting a few times. Harold had lost his dad in middle school, but his stepmother Isabella came from a wealthy family. After graduating from a prestigious university and working for a major corporation, he always seemed to have financial and emotional leeway, which showed in his attitude. Thanks to this, Harold was always attentive to me. On anniversaries, he'd go all out with presents, luxurious dinners, hotels with beautiful night views, and even bouquets of flowers. Treated like a princess, I was over the moon. When we decided to get married, I was thrilled, thinking I could build a happy home with him. Little did I know, I'd regret it so soon. Since middle school, Isabella had lived alone with Harold, so it was easy to imagine she'd interfere in our marriage. However, Isabella, living in the next town, never visited our apartment and didn't rush us to visit her in-laws' home either. She seems busy with theater, traveling with friends, or concerts, I was told. Hearing this, I felt relieved. Soon after, I became pregnant, and both Isabella and Harold were more delighted than I, savoring the happiness. But it was around this time that dark clouds began to loom over our marriage. Harold started going out on weekends. Despite my being weak from morning sickness, he'd casually go skiing, camping, or traveling, making me question his sensitivity. Getting married and then leaving the house empty every weekend is just strange. When I complained, Harold cocked his head. "It's impossible to take a pregnant wife with me." "Oh. Then, should I invite people over? Maybe around 5 or 6 each week." Harold's face lit up with excitement. "Wouldn't that be fun for you, too? For a barbecue, everyone could bring some vegetables or meat. It would surely take your mind off things." I was dumbfounded. He knows I can't eat because of the nausea, and he says this? "That's obviously not going to work," I shouted, and Harold frowned in displeasure. "What's wrong with going out and having fun with my own money on weekends? I'm not saying don't go, but you're not single anymore. I just wish you'd be more considerate." Harold looked even more disgusted. "You should be the one more considerate." "What? I'm providing a comfortable life thanks to me, and you're not grateful enough. I'm working for both of us, so you should be more devoted. You're the wife, after all." With those arrogant words, he grabbed his suitcase and left the house. As the sound of the car engine faded, I slumped into the sofa, feeling gloomy. I could understand where Harold was coming from. But leaving a pregnant wife alone, spending weekdays drinking late with colleagues, and weekends playing with single friends every week, is questionable. He hasn't shaken off his bachelor mindset. Would becoming a father next year bring some sense of responsibility? I had no choice but to believe he would change. Eventually, a boy was safely born. The child we named Cody was growing well. "Please don't come to the maternity hospital," Harold had asked Isabella, so I was grateful for the quiet time in the room. However, the backlash was tremendous. After being discharged, Isabella, along with friends, repeatedly barged into my apartment. The first time was just after I had finally managed to put Cody to sleep. The moment I sat down on the sofa to rest, the intercom rang loudly, making my heart jump. Checking the monitor, there was Isabella and several older women. Reluctantly unlocking the door, Isabella and her friends made a grand entrance, stormed into the living room, and dashed for the crib they found. "Oh, how cute! Right? He looks just like Harold." "Really? Do you think so?" "You just love Harold too much, that's why you think so." "Oh, he's opening his eyes." Cody, sleepy and dazed, quickly twisted his face and started crying loudly. "Michelle, hurry and soothe him. It's cruel to let him cry so much. And make some tea. I'd like some herbal tea and snacks, please." While holding back my irritation, I picked up Cody to soothe him. Isabella and her friends surrounded me, poking Cody's cheeks and stroking his head as if he were a pet. "It's nice, isn't it? I want a grandchild soon too. We have 2 girls. I keep telling my daughter-in-law we need a boy next." Listening to their conversation, Isabella looked smug. Like a storm, Isabella and her friends came, chatted beside me soothing Cody, made a mess with snacks, and left. When I complained to Harold after he returned from work, he strangely smiled. "Mom wanted to show off her grandson to her friends. It's cute what she did." I recoiled in shock. "Listen, I'm only 3 days post-discharge. I'm in a daze, nursing every 2 hours, and managing the household." His indifferent response irritated me. "It took another 2 hours to put Cody back to sleep. Please, no more unannounced visits. Tell Isabella." At my plea, Harold visibly grimaced. "Mom and her friends came all this way to celebrate. Instead of being grateful, why complain?" Feeling utterly frustrated with Harold's lack of understanding, I wished I had given birth back at my parents' home, even if it meant hours by plane and train. My parents live with my brother and his wife, who have young kids, so I hesitated to return home. "Harold, you're not involved in childcare at all. You don't understand. Can't you look after Cody once in a while?" I pleaded earnestly. "Maybe just for an hour on the weekend? I'd like to visit the salon or relax at a cafe for a bit." "So, you want to skip Mom's duties?" Harold laughed derisively. "Every mom raises her kids alone. If you can't, you're a failure as a mom." "That's cruel." "Don't say that. It's the truth." He glared at me, speaking bluntly. "Can't believe you'd ask to waste my precious weekend. I'm the one providing for you. Isn't that enough? If you want to be pampered, go back to your parents' house. And don't come back." Throwing those cold words at me, Harold walked away to the bathroom. Left alone in the room, I wiped my eyes, and Cody, sensing my mood, started to fuss. Holding Cody, I felt a deep sense of despair. He used to be so kind, how could he change so much? Or was this his true nature all along? Eventually, I began to think, in a way, Isabella might be better than Harold. She showed interest in Cody, entertained him with toys, and talked to him. Harold, strangely, showed little interest in Cody. Only after much insistence did he start taking showers with Cody on weekends, but he refused to do any other caregiving. Even in the same room, Harold was engrossed in his mobile phone games, brushing Cody away irritably when he crawled up. Whether Cody laughed in his adorable voice or babbled in baby talk, Harold remained indifferent. Could such a person ever become a dad-like figure? Just starting on this journey of parenthood, I felt overwhelmed by anxiety. Isabella continued to bring different friends over, but once Cody turned 3 and began to express his own opinions, showing signs of independence, she stopped visiting altogether. It seemed Cody's cuteness had diminished for her. After enjoying a brief period of peace, I approached Harold about starting work. I want to start working soon. There seems to be a spot available at the nearby daycare. Why? My salary should be enough for us to get by, Harold responded, visibly displeased. A wife should stay at home and take care of me and the child. I almost laughed at his outdated views, but I humbly pleaded with him. I want to save up for Cody's college fund. Can I work part-time, please? Fine, but don't let the housework slide. I plan to work at my uncle's company. Harold smirked. Oh, a nepotism hire, huh? They need a female office worker. So, they say. Well, work hard at that tiny company that might go under at any moment. His mocking tone annoyed me, and I bit my lip. Your company does business with them, you know. Ha! Well, tell them not to cause any trouble for us. His arrogance, despite being just an assistant manager, infuriated me. I decided then that I would work hard, save up, and divorce this man. With that secret hope, I worked diligently. As Cody grew and balancing work and home became manageable, I switched to a full-time position and worked even harder. One evening, Harold came home looking downcast. Welcome back. What's wrong? Our company is going under. What? Bankrupt. Rushing to check my phone, I saw articles about Harold's company. Harold looked awkwardly at the floor, a sight I hadn't expected. I'd heard about the poor performance, but I never imagined it would collapse. What will we do? Guess I'll have to find a job at another company, he said dismissively, dropping his commuter bag to the floor. Panic set in. Living on my salary alone was doable, but saving would be tough. For now, I planned to dip into the savings I'd secretly amassed for a potential divorce and use it for Cody's college fund. Despite Harold's bluster at home, we had been comfortably living off his income. Losing that would be a significant blow. I could only hope he'd find a new job before the unemployment benefits ran out. However, Harold's determination only lasted a month. Soon, he fell into a routine of staying up late and sleeping in, leading a sloppy life. I was frustrated that Harold used all his unemployment benefits as pocket money without contributing to the household. Watching him play mobile games while sprawled on the couch, as I cooked and cleaned, made my anger nearly boil over multiple times. Hey, maybe it's time to seriously look for a job. You're almost 40. It might become harder to find the job you want after that. When I gently pushed him, Harold angrily retorted. Shut up! I'm looking on job sites. But I've never seen you write a resume. I'm carefully selecting a company worthy of me, he declared arrogantly. I graduated from a top university. Working for a low-grade company would tarnish my reputation. You, coming from a lesser background, wouldn't understand. Oh, is that so? After countless exchanges like this, with no progress, 10 years passed. As Cody faced college entrance exams and was swamped with studies, even during long vacations, Harold, in his jersey and with a stubble, was still engrossed in his games. I thought about giving up and divorcing him many times. Since his family was wealthy, Harold could live with Isabella without worrying about ending up on the streets. But, feeling it was too harsh to abandon an unemployed husband, I couldn't make that step, and before I knew it, 10 years had flown by. Unable to bear it any longer, I finally decided to use my connections. I pleaded with my uncle to employ Harold. Fortunately, the branch office in the next town was looking for someone in sales, which was perfect. "Hey, how about working at my uncle's company?" One evening, I broached the subject to Harold, excited. "I mentioned your background, and they said it would be a waste not to have you join us." Of course, it was a complete lie, but Harold, true to my expectations, took the bait due to his pride. "Well, a high-caliber person like me is rare in small and medium enterprises. They must want me at any cost." He seemed quite pleased with the idea. "So, should I proceed with the discussion?" What to do? After feigning indecision, his eyes were glued to the mobile phone screen I opened. "Oh, this? It's from a new product exhibition." "Huh. Looks fun." He mused nostalgically, whispering, "I might work at your company." "Really? That's great. But it's been a while, so I want to start with 3 days a week. And make sure I can leave on time." I was at a loss for words. "Well, as you know, our company has a complete 2-day weekend system, Saturdays and Sundays off. End of month and busy periods require overtime, and special treatment is difficult." Harold's eyes widened in anger. "Listen, I'm working again after a long break. It's like rehabilitation. And you want me to start with long hours? Do you want me, a delicate person, to get sick?" I was infuriated by Harold's words. "For the past 10 years, I've balanced housework, child-rearing, and full-time work, supporting you, right?" But, not wanting to upset him, I swallowed the complaints that rose to my throat. After consulting with my uncle, Harold was offered a part-time job with lower hourly pay than the market rate, allowing him to finally escape unemployment after 10 years. Harold, who resumed working, quickly became lively. Seeing him clean-shaven and in a suit was moving. Though he had thinned on top and his figure had changed, a bit of his youthful freshness seemed to return. The day when he could work hard as before might be near. Then, I could ask him to contribute to the household expenses again. Relieved, I wondered. It's fine for him to work 3 days, but what about the other 4? On Harold's days off, he was invariably out when I returned from work. He often came home late, smelling of alcohol, possibly frequenting cocktail lounges, but could he afford that on his meager salary? The occasional scent of women's perfume on his clothes was also suspicious. If it were a cocktail lounge, the scents would mix. Yet it was always the same scent. About a year after Harold found a new job, I received a photo and message from an unknown number on my mobile phone. It was a picture of Harold snuggling in bed with a heavily made-up woman. I recognized the woman. She was Natalie, a hostess who had attended a new product launch at my company. "I'm Harold's mistress. Can't wait to live together." Although I was stunned, I wasn't particularly shocked. My affection for Harold had cooled long ago. So he was cheating after all. I sighed. He must have looked up Natalie from the new product launch photos stored on the company computer and seduced her. As I stared at the image, anger welled up within me. He had the nerve to do this after getting a job through my connections. I called Harold, but the call rang endlessly without answer, and my angry messages remained unread. That night, Harold didn't come home. Moreover, he started skipping work without notice from the next day. "Skipping work for a mistress? What are you thinking? You're going to lose the job you finally got." I sent that message during my lunch break, but still, there was no reply. Returning home feeling agitated, I noticed the room felt oddly spacious. Looking around, I realized most of the furniture was gone. The Scandinavian sofa set, the wooden table, the two-seater dining table, the stylish shelf, the chic TV board. All purchased with my salary. Shocked, I stood frozen when I noticed a piece of paper on the floor in the center of the room. In round handwriting alongside Harold's, it read, "I'm taking Harold away. I've moved to Natalie's place. Don't bother trying to get me back." Crumpling the note, I called Harold again. The moment it connected, I was ready to yell. "What's the meaning of this? Where are you? You're so upset." "Hilarious." A nasal, sweet voice, probably Natalie's, responded. "Should I offer you a job?" "What?" "If you're okay being a housekeeper, I'll give you the address." Her presumptuous tone almost made me burst into laughter. Natalie seemed to be under a major misunderstanding. "Then, it's divorce with Harold, who only earns $8 an hour. If you want to talk in your sleep." Ah, she knows nothing. Poor thing. Suppressing my laughter, I pleaded in a pathetic voice. "I'd be in trouble if Harold left me. How will I live?" Then Natalie burst out laughing on the other end of the line. "You're just a gold digger for Harold, aren't you? A housewife dumped by her husband, how miserable, but it's tough, honestly, but I don't want to complain and make Harold hate me more. Tell Harold to call me once the divorce is ready. Thanks for being so understanding. Bye. After hanging up the phone, I clenched my back teeth. Enough with the mockery. Just you watch. I'll knock you from the pinnacle of happiness to the depths of despair. I silently vowed. After confiding in my uncle, I decided to make Harold resign and determined to make them fully realize the consequences of their actions. I hired a private investigator for a conduct investigation and did as much research as I could on Harold and Natalie. 2 weeks later, I sent a message to Harold. "I want to discuss our divorce. Please come to my place with Natalie." The two of them showed up at the appointed time, hand in hand, smugly smiling as if to flaunt their relationship to me. As I led them into the living room, Natalie sneered. "Wow, haven't bothered to replace the furniture? You really are broke." "Well, being a gold digger to a big corporation worker like Harold, it's understandable." "Excuse me? You stole my furniture and you have the nerve to say that? I could report you to the police, you know." "Oh, please. That sounds terrible. I just moved the furniture Harold bought himself during the move." Just as Harold said, "You're not too bright." Natalie's disdain was palpable. Turning to Harold, who awkwardly averted his eyes from me. It was clear he was trying to impress Natalie. When the furniture was replaced because it was old, Harold was unemployed, and my salary was all we had. To lie so blatantly when it's bound to be discovered, who's the dumb one here? Muttering curses under my breath, I addressed Harold. "Harold, you feel the same way as I do, right? That is, you want a divorce?" "Yeah." Harold nodded, looking displeased. "I'm sick of taking care of a worn-out old woman like you." He spat out disdainfully. "Meeting Natalie made me realize that everything that hasn't worked out in our 20 years of marriage is all your fault." I couldn't believe my ears. That's my line. "Being with you has brought my luck down. That's why I'm leaving you to start my life over." Then, he made a demand. "What?" "Alimony. You've been a nuisance for 20 years of marriage, haven't you? I'm generous, so I'll let you off with $100,000. Come on, hand it over. You can even give me your bank account, and I'll withdraw it myself. His haughty tone made me feel not just angry, but somehow sad. He can't live with Natalie on his current salary, so he's begging me for money. High pride, but stooping so low. All right. It must be expensive to live with 5 people, after all. Really? Are you sure? His eyes sparkled before he puzzledly asked, 5 people? I smiled and explained to Harold. Yes, that's right. Natalie and her 3 kids. From the top, they're in junior high, 6th grade, and 5 years old, right? All girls, aren't they? Natalie's face drained of color. Surprised, Harold glanced back and forth between me and Natalie, showing his confusion. With kids? I knew about the divorce, but kids are news to me. Natalie, what is she talking about? Natalie, lips sealed, remained silent, and Harold's eyes widened in shock. Seriously? No way. He muttered, disappointed. Harold must have cheated on me, thinking Natalie was divorced with no kids. From the envelope handed to me by the investigator, I took out the report and a stack of photos, choosing those showing Natalie with the kids and spread them on the floor. Good luck with the challenging ages, Harold, I said with a touch of sarcasm. It's highly doubtful you, who declared hating kids and dumped all childcare on me, not even wanting to bond with your own son, will be embraced by someone else's children. No, it'll be fine. Look, they all resemble Natalie and are cute, so I'm sure I'll come to like them. Harold forced a smile and held Natalie's hand. Natalie, looking up, remained uneasy. Then, the intercom rang with Isabella's voice coming from the other side, causing Harold to start. Why is Mom coming? I told her we're divorcing because of your affair, and she insisted on being present. I replied, and Harold grimaced as if swallowing a bitter bug. Opening the door, Isabella barged into the room, pushing past me with heavy footsteps and immediately started yelling at Natalie upon entering the living room. You home wrecker! Natalie, eyes wide, quickly put on a smile and tried to charm Isabella. Isabella, their marriage was already over. So, your term is incorrect. No, it's not. The thief is you and not my daughter-in-law. You stole my precious son from me. Isabella pointed a finger at Natalie, spitting as she shouted. The daughter-in-law is plain. The mistress is a thick makeup-wearing mother. Harold has no eye for women. Harold hung his head as he was scolded. And now, 3 daughters? Fooled by seduction by such a failure who can't even bear a son. Without me, you fall for the worst women. Harold lifted his face, weakly protesting. Don't speak ill of Natalie, Mom. It was her previous husband who was no good. If she remarries me, she'll surely bear a boy. Right, Natalie? Yes. Natalie's cheeks twitched as Isabella glared at her venomously. Trust that? If you're going to remarry the mistress, take Cody with you. Then I'll consider it. Harold's eyebrows dropped in dismay. What? I don't want that brat. He's bad at online games and doesn't bond with me at all. Not cute at all. His selfish remarks infuriated me. After all, he hardly ever played with him from a young age, always shooing him away. Isabella, it's impossible for me to take Cody. I interjected, unable to hold back any longer. Be quiet, you too. He's already 19, living in a university dorm. He's very independent and plans to live on his own after graduation. I won't let you do as you please. It's common sense for a boy to return to his father's family home after a divorce. Isabella's eyes widened in surprise. That's a piece of common sense I'm hearing for the first time in my life. My frustration with the ever unreasonable Isabella grew. Harold. After remaining silent for a while, Natalie timidly tugged at Harold's sleeve. What is it, Natalie? Seeing Harold's sloppy smile made me angry. If he's your child, I'm sure he would be cute. But having 4 kids? Are we financially okay? To this legitimate concern, Harold confidently replied. Don't worry, Natalie. As I've told you before, my family is wealthy. Plus, I'm a high-income director at a large corporation. Marrying me means you'll be set for life. At his words, Natalie's face lit up with joy. I'm so happy. Then I don't have to work at the cocktail lounge anymore. Being a hostess was getting hard at my age. It's been tough for you. From now on, I'll protect you, so you can rest easy. Hearing Harold's pretentious statement as he embraced Natalie, I felt nauseous. Doesn't lying so much ever make you feel guilty? I wondered. My guests probably felt the same. Suddenly, the door separating the next room from the living room opened. It might have been slightly earlier than planned, but the timing could not have been better. Seeing the person who suddenly appeared, Harold shouted. Startled, he quickly turned away. The woman who opened the door looked over at the confused Isabella and Natalie and greeted them with a polite smile. Nice to meet you. I'm Serena Tucker, the daughter of the owner of Tucker Industry where Harold worked 10 years ago. The Tucker Industry? Natalie and Isabella's eyes widened. Thank you for your politeness. Oh, isn't that the company where my son is currently employed? Yes, Isabella. Harold, what's wrong? Harold, who had been brimming with confidence until moments ago, started to tremble slightly. See, everything gets revealed like this. What do you plan to do now? Unable to contain a smile, I covered my mouth with my hand. I thought it was strange. That company not following up on the re-employment of its former employees was unheard of. After revisiting old newspaper articles, I found that most employees were referred to affiliated companies or subcontractors. Then, tracking down a former colleague close to Harold using the address from a Christmas card, I discovered a shocking truth. Harold, you were fired just before the company went bankrupt. Harassing Serena, an intern at the headquarters, and enraging the CEO was the cause. Natalie and Isabella were dumbfounded. Ridiculous, right? A 20-year-old college girl would never have an affair with a nearly 40-year-old unremarkable assistant manager. Too much confidence can be a bad thing. With a mocking laugh, Natalie looked at Harold incredulously. Harold, did you really pester a college girl? What's with that face? It's only natural for a man to pursue young, wealthy women. Got a problem with that? Natalie and Isabella were shocked at Harold's brazenness. Wait, assistant manager? So, Harold, where are you working now? At my uncle's company. His title is a part-time job at $8 an hour. He'd been unemployed for 10 years, so I got him working again by kicking him in the rear. I explained the details to Natalie and Isabella with a smile. I got him the job at my uncle's company through my connections. Despite the rule that he should work every weekday, he insisted on working only 3 days a week, so I had to plead to my uncle. Isabella let out a strange cry. It seems she hadn't heard anything from Harold. Natalie, all the furniture you two took was bought with my salary. When we replaced it, Harold was a mobile phone game addict and unemployed with 0 savings. But, Natalie muttered in disbelief. Harold used to brag about how he was the one providing for his wife. He always complained you weren't grateful enough. The pot calling the kettle black, right? I glared sharply at Harold, who was cringing uncomfortably, and unleashed the anger I'd been storing up. While you were unemployed and lazy, I was desperately working, balancing housework and child-rearing. As a woman, that's to be expected. Nothing to brag about, Harold shouted back defiantly. And yet you always looked down on me, and even after getting re-employed through my uncle's company, instead of being grateful, you went and got yourself a mistress. How much more do you intend to belittle me? Shut up! A part-time job through connections and you're acting all high and mighty. And when was that? I laughed contemptuously. What are you talking about? Too bad. I'm now a senior vice president, I announced cheerfully, and Harold stiffened. What? Say senior vice president? That's right. Unfortunately for you, I'm earning more now than when you were an assistant manager. Liar! A third-rate university graduate like you couldn't possibly be earning that much. When I showed him my salary slip, Harold's face twisted in pain before he finally hung his head in defeat. Then, Isabella, seemingly recovered from the shock, wrapped an arm around Harold's shoulders and sneered at me. Challenging your husband despite being just a daughter-in-law, how impudent. It's because of your attitude that Harold grew tired and sought a mistress. Tired of even bothering to respond, I ignored her as Isabella comforted Harold with sweet, gentle words. Harold, leave them and come back to Mom's place. I'll find you a suitable wife. You can have a son with another woman. Yeah, I'll do that. Harold looked apologetically at Natalie. Sorry, Natalie. Since you don't have Mom's blessing, I have to break up with you. At those words, Natalie's expression turned ferocious. She stood up abruptly, face flushed with rage, and yelled, I'll be more than happy to. You lying womanizer. I thought marrying a director of a large company might be worth it, but what a mistake. Grabbing her designer bag, she pulled out her mobile phone, wallet, and makeup pouch, then hurled the bag at Harold. I wouldn't be with a 15-year-older man otherwise. Thinking you're desirable with your delusional is just gross. Natalie, don't touch me. Shoving away Harold's grasping hand, Natalie left in a huff. Serena, who had been watching everything, bowed to me and left. Here's the divorce petition. Sign it and submit it to the office. If it's too much trouble, send it back to me in the envelope I included. I handed the divorce petition to a tearful and frozen Harold, then informed Isabella. We'll go through lawyers for the arrangements for the divorce compensation. The discussion is over, so please take him with you. I was leaving anyway. Harold, let's go back now and come for your things later. As I saw Isabella and Harold out, I mentioned one more thing. Oh yes, please also settle the $80,000 debt he's accumulated from our joint account for online gaming. He went back to being jobless, so I'll be sending the bill to you, Isabella. Take care. Isabella turned back, blinking in disbelief. What? It's for his online gaming. Since Harold's jobless again, I'll be sending the bill to you. Bye now. I pushed them out the door, locked it immediately, and breathed a sigh of relief. The next day, Harold sent back the signed divorce papers, which I promptly submitted to the office. To my surprise, the compensation amount I requested was deposited into my account without any complaints from Harold. Isabella must have covered it to get rid of me quickly. The stolen furniture was also returned in good condition, which was a relief. When I demanded compensation from Natalie, the money was soon deposited into my account, and then, to my surprise, Natalie's mother brought her to my house. Encouraged by her mother, Natalie apologized to me with a displeased look. Her mother was also very apologetic. The compensation her mother covered will be paid back by Natalie, who will now have to juggle her cocktail lounge job with another part-time job. It's good that her mother is a sensible person. Afterwards, though I thought Harold would get along with Isabella, their relationship apparently soured. Back to being jobless, Harold showed no signs of seeking employment, immersing himself in online gaming and spending Isabella's savings and pension.
He used to be so cute, but my daughter-in-law turned my son into a fool. If this continues, I'll lose all my savings. I wish he would leave the house.
Isabella supposedly complained to neighbors. Finally free from Harold, I've been feeling refreshed and living each day to the fullest. If I knew it would be this liberating, I would have cut ties sooner. When I told Cody about the divorce over the phone, he replied cheerfully, "You finally made up your mind. Congratulations. He's still your dad, so if you ever want to see him, you can."
What? I never want to see him again. My family is just you, Mom.
His straightforward response made me laugh.
Now it's time for your second life, Mom. In both work and personal life, you're free to do as you please without being tied down by anyone.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. Encouraged by my son's words, I smiled warmly. Moving forward, Cody and I plan to live happily and make the most of the rest of our lives together. I am Penelope, 23 years old and still single. My family is a prestigious one that has been passed down through generations. Born the only daughter in this family, I wasn't spoiled but was raised strictly by my dad. I must say, I grew up to be a sensible and serious person. I started dating the handsome Thomas, 27 years old, a year ago through a friend's introduction. I was ready to get married if he proposed, but Thomas hadn't popped the question yet. I always thought to myself, hurry up and propose already. One day, while on a date with Thomas, I decided to subtly probe him.
Hey Thomas, what's your dream? Well, I guess to work hard, eventually lead a team, and take on some responsible roles.
You always talk about work, don't you? Yeah. Sorry about that. Thomas laughed, so I laughed along with him.
What's your ideal view of marriage, Thomas? I suppose, coming home tired from work to someone who welcomes me warmly. Work again, huh? Yeah, haha. Do you think I could be the one to welcome you warmly? That's something we'll only know when it happens.
Thomas kept dodging my questions. But I asked one more thing.
Do you like kids, Thomas?
I think I probably do.
You're not very clear, are you? Yeah. Sorry about that.
We continued our relationship, always having a great time on our twice-a-week dates. But things started to change with Thomas the day after my 24th birthday. Up until then, I had never talked about my family to Thomas, and he never asked. I was warned by Mom to be wary of men who might be after our family's wealth. But I decided to invite Thomas over to my house on my birthday. When Thomas visited my home, he was shocked.
Penelope's house is amazing, I'm envious.
It's just big and old. It's the exact opposite of my house.
Houses don't matter. Come in.
Mom greeted us as we entered and led Thomas to the drawing room. Thomas looked around, but seemed to relax after taking a sip of the coffee brought by the housekeeper. He said with a wry smile,
This drawing room is huge. It's bigger than all the rooms in my house combined. If the family's happy, the size of the house or rooms doesn't matter. Really? If my mom saw this, she'd be floored. That's a bit of an exaggeration.
Not really. That's when Mom joined the conversation.
What does Thomas's dad do?
He passed away 10 years ago.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. No, it's okay. My mom is working energetically at a local supermarket. That's good to hear.
We were having such casual conversations. During this, when Mom mentioned that my dad was hospitalized with lung cancer, Thomas showed great concern and asked about his condition. Seeing Thomas getting along and talking with Mom made me really happy. However, the very next day, Thomas changed. He had never shown any interest in my family or asked about it. But now, Thomas started asking all sorts of questions.
Penelope, your house is impressive, but how large is the property?
I'm not interested, so I don't know.
Don't people usually know that?
That's why I don't know.
Okay. You don't have any brothers or sisters, right?
That's right, I'm an only child. But why are you asking this? No, just asking.
By the way, I'd like to visit your house, Thomas, and meet your mom. That's fine anytime, isn't it?
Seems like you don't want me visiting your place.
Not at all. Then think about it, okay?
Thomas said with a slightly reluctant look. All right, but I can't say when. Since then, Thomas began visiting my house more frequently. The old Thomas wouldn't have, but now he kept insisting on visiting. And whenever he came, he would extensively inquire about family relations and the land we owned. At one point, I said, "What's with all these questions? It's like you have some ulterior motive." Thomas looked surprised for a moment, but quickly returned to his usual expression. No, just asking. His answer was exactly the same as before, but I thought Thomas was up to something. About a month had passed when Thomas, with a big smile, suddenly suggested we live together. And finally proposed to me. I was overjoyed but told him I'd answer later. That night, I called Mom and told her about the proposal from Thomas. But Mom's voice wasn't one of joy, it was worried, so I asked her.
Mom, what's wrong? You sound worried.
It's not a big worry. Thomas's mom called, asking about the land and the house. It's a bit rude, isn't it? Really? Thomas has been asking me the same. Maybe he's plotting something. That's why, Penelope, maybe you should wait before answering the proposal. I think so too. I'll look into Thomas a bit more. That's a good idea. After the call with Mom, I phoned Thomas.
Thomas, I just told Mom about the proposal. She was really happy.
That's good.
But she said I should discuss it with Dad before answering. So please wait a little longer for my answer.
What's that about? Well, please answer as soon as possible.
Okay, I understand.
Thomas sounded disappointed and quickly ended the call. The next day, I went to visit Dad in the hospital.
How are you feeling, Dad?
Not too bad. More importantly, Penelope, you seem to have something to tell me. I heard from Mom. I got proposed to. I wanted to tell Dad about it.
If Penelope has chosen him, I have nothing to say. Just be happy. But recently something has been bothering me. What's that?
This man keeps asking about Dad's house. Like how big is the land, who owns it, and such. That does sound suspicious.
You think so too, Dad? That's why I'm not answering the proposal yet. That's right. Answer only after you're sure you can trust him. Yes, I understand, Dad. Thank you. I'll get discharged soon to see Penelope in her dress. Please get well soon.
I left the hospital after telling Dad that. I had no idea that this would be my last conversation with him. The following week after visiting Dad, I went to Thomas's house. Previously, when I said I wanted to visit his house, he always found excuses to avoid it, but this time he readily agreed, and I visited. Just as Thomas said, it was a small and old house. But I didn't mind that at all. When Thomas and I entered his house from the entrance, Thomas's mom was waiting for us.
Nice to meet you, I'm Penelope. Welcome, Penelope. Thomas always talks about how much you help him. Please make yourself comfortable today.
Thomas's mom was very kind and seemed to love talking, as she kept going from one topic to the next. It was when Thomas went to the restroom.
Penelope, what do you think about our Thomas?
I was taken aback by the question, and after a brief pause, I answered.
Yes, I think he's very kind and sincere. Then, I'd like you to accept Thomas's proposal.
I was surprised again and blurted out.
Yes.
The moment I said that and realized what I had said and was about to correct myself, Thomas came back, and his mom said to him with a broad smile,
Thomas, Penelope has agreed to be with you.
Hearing that, Thomas also smiled broadly and said to me,
So you finally decided. Thank you.
I said to Thomas.
That's not what I meant.
I started to say the words of denial, but Thomas cut me off.
Don't worry about a fancy ceremony, just getting registered is enough.
I was at a loss for words, confused and unsure of what to do. I called Mom the next day.
Yesterday, I went to Thomas's house for the first time and somehow ended up agreeing to marry him. He wants to just register the marriage without a ceremony.
Oh dear.
And how do you feel, Penelope? Dad said to answer Thomas only if I could trust him, so I didn't want to answer yet. If that's what you think, Penelope, then don't register the marriage. Can I do that?
You can or can't, just don't submit the marriage registration.
But Thomas will find out.
Just tell Thomas that you've already submitted it.
Isn't that lying? Won't it cause problems later? If you find out Thomas is truly trustworthy, then secretly submit the marriage registration.
Following Mom's advice, the next day I said to Thomas,
Thomas, did you sign the marriage registration?
Thomas looked happy and was signing it. I felt a pang in my heart at that moment, but I endured it thinking of my future happiness. Thomas and I decided to live in the apartment I had been living in, as Thomas said his family home was too small. Early one morning, not long after we started living together, I received a call from Mom. The ringing sounded like an urgent plea. When I looked at my mobile phone screen, it was indeed from Mom.
Mom, what's happened? Penelope, come to Dad's hospital immediately. Dad has.
Her words at the end were drowned in tears. I quickly got ready and rushed to the hospital, arriving at Dad's room. There, Mom was crying, draped over Dad's body. The doctor, he passed away 5 minutes ago, told me. I screamed and embraced Dad's body, growing colder, alongside Mom. The doctor and nurses had kindly left the room. After completing all the funeral arrangements and other procedures with Mom, I became like an empty shell. I had no energy to do anything. If Dad were alive,
pull yourself together, Penelope,
he surely would have said. I wished to hear Dad's voice even if he scolded me. As I was sitting absent-mindedly in Dad's bedroom, thinking about him, Mom came in and said to me,
Penelope, actually, Dad left you an inheritance.
Surprised, I said.
Eh? Inheritance?
Yes, Dad passed away a little before giving me a will, and in it, he wrote about the inheritance for Penelope.
I remembered my strict yet kind dad and tears overflowed again.
The inheritance is $3 million. Dad said he wanted to make sure Penelope wouldn't face any hardships in the future.
Crying, I said,
I don't know what to do with such a huge amount of money. Right now, it's best to deposit it in a bank.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Having transferred Dad's inheritance to my account, I suddenly became very wealthy, but frankly, it was an overwhelming amount. After Dad's death, when things calmed down a bit, I returned from my family home to my apartment. Thomas was watching TV when I entered the room.
How are you feeling now? Better?
I'm okay now.
Thinking I shouldn't dwell on this sadness forever, I forced a smile. It was Sunday afternoon, 3 days later. When I returned from shopping, Thomas's mom was there. Then Thomas saw me and said,
Transfer all the money to Mom's account right now.
I was puzzled.
All the money? I don't understand what you mean. The money in your account.
Why would Thomas know about my bank account? I just saw your banking card in your desk drawer.
I was outraged that Thomas had looked at my banking card without permission.
That's terrible. Is it okay to do that? We're married, aren't we? No secrets.
I'm not hiding anything, but is it okay for Thomas to look through my things without asking?
That's what marriage is.
The conversation was going in circles. At this moment, I was convinced that I should not marry this person. Listening to our conversation, Thomas's mom said,
A wife with money is never a good thing, LOL.
At that, my anger exploded.
I am unmarried.
Both Thomas and his mom exclaimed in unison.
What?
That's right. I am not married to Thomas.
What do you mean? We're married, aren't we?
Did Thomas submit the marriage registration to the office?
I didn't submit it, but I told you it was okay just to register the marriage, right? Yes, you did say that. But I haven't registered it yet. So, we are not married. I am single.
At those words, Thomas collapsed on the floor.
Penelope, you are unbelievable. I haven't lied about anything. I am not the unbelievable one. Isn't it more unbelievable to look through someone's banking card without permission?
It's not too late. Please register the marriage.
I can't do that. Absolutely not.
Please, Penelope. I'm begging you.
Why do I have to transfer my money to your mom's account? I don't understand. The thing is, we're in a huge debt. I was hoping you could help us. Please stop calling me you. And there's no reason for me to help you.
But if you marry Thomas, you'll be his wife. That's a selfish reason and doesn't justify it.
Please, Penelope. What kind of debt is it? Well, let me say it, Mom. I've been divorced before. My previous wife was a rich girl, high maintenance, and did nothing for me.
What does that have to do with my money?
Living with such a woman, I ended up getting involved with another woman, got caught, and she divorced me. Then she demanded a ridiculous amount for the divorce settlement.
I see.
So you want me to pay for that divorce settlement? This is too absurd for words.
Wait, hear me out. I couldn't pay that amount and argued in court, but she brought a skilled lawyer and eventually I signed it.
After hearing everything, it's even more ridiculous. Why should I pay for your ex-wife's divorce settlement?
I thought if you married Thomas, you could help him.
Even if I officially married him, I would never pay such money.
Saying this, Thomas's eyes filled with tears.
Marry me. Please marry Thomas. Then shall we get married?
Their expressions brightened momentarily at my words. But then I said,
But as I said earlier, even if we get married, I won't pay a cent for that divorce settlement.
Are you still willing to marry me? Their expressions returned to normal, and Thomas's mom, now crying, said, Penelope, please show us some mercy. Such tearful please don't work on me. Even after we've begged so much, it's still no? Yes, it's a no. Absolutely no. Dad said to marry someone I can trust. Don't you trust me? No, I don't trust you at all. Trust level 0. Hearing my firm response, Thomas said with a bitter expression, I see. I didn't think you were such a cold woman. I didn't expect Thomas to be after my money either. Thomas's mom angrily said to me, Get out of this house.
Don't say such ridiculous things. This is my apartment. It's under my name. Is that true, Thomas?
Yeah, it is. You two need to leave. Please go and never appear before me again.
We'll leave, but we'll come back for our things.
No, I don't want to see Thomas's face. Please have the movers collect them.
You're such a cold woman. It's good that you're not Thomas's wife.
Yes, I am a cold woman. So please leave quickly. As I said this, the two left the apartment, throwing hateful glances at me. After they left, I went back to my family home and told Mom everything about Thomas.
He was such a terrible person. Good thing you didn't register the marriage. Yes. It's awful to think of using Dad's precious inheritance for his ex-wife's divorce settlement.
Now that you haven't registered the marriage, just forget about it.
Yes, I will. Next time, I'll find a truly wonderful man. I'll support you.
About 2 months later, Thomas called. What is it? You shouldn't have any business with me anymore. I know, but I need to borrow some money. Thomas, don't you have any common sense? You think I'll lend you money? I knew it was a long shot. Okay, I understand. Thomas hung up abruptly. A few days later, I was shopping in a department store in a busy area, a bit away from where I usually go. I was looking for my favorite brand when I accidentally bumped into a skinny man in work clothes and an elderly woman collecting trash, causing their cart to tip over. I hurried to apologize, and when I saw the man's face, it was Thomas. The woman picking up trash nearby was Thomas's mom. I quietly said to Thomas, Excuse me, it was my fault. Thomas replied in an even quieter voice, No, I'm sorry. Are you hurt? Thomas clearly saw my face, but reacted as if I were a stranger. Seeing his gaunt appearance and poor complexion, I thought he might be unwell, but reminded myself he was no longer my concern. Thomas and his mom finished picking up the trash and moved on to the next section. Their backs showed no signs of life.
Emily, is Grandpa behaving himself?
Oh, yes, well, kind of. Injuring his leg, old people can be such a nuisance. I wish they'd think about those of us who have to take care of them.
Patricia, that's not a nice way to say it.
It's fine, he's already declining quite a bit. I can't handle the fuss of old people. But you're used to it, so you'll be fine. The other day, my husband's grandfather, Michael, fell in the garden and injured his leg. It's not a serious injury, but he's already 82 years old. Because of his age, we're having him rest in bed just to be safe, so it doesn't get worse. My mother-in-law won't even go near him, let alone take care of him. I'm Emily, 30 years old. I married 3 years ago and live with my husband Daniel's family. My husband was my boss at the company where I worked, a company founded by his grandfather. When I joined 8 years ago, my father-in-law was already the president, and my grandfather-in-law was the chairman. But back then, the grandfather was still handling all the important tasks and responsibilities of the company. 2 years ago, When Grandpa turned 80, he remained chairman but handed over most of the public duties to my father-in-law.
Michael, you've worked hard all this time. Now leave the company matters to Christopher and take it easy.
My mother-in-law said with a smile, but her words sounded sarcastic to me. Grandfather-in-law is a bit stubborn but a fair and kind person with a good reputation. In contrast, my father-in-law seems somewhat immature, never expressing his opinions clearly, and utterly unreliable compared to Grandpa. And he always does whatever my mother-in-law says. My grandmother-in-law has already passed away, and I never met her. My husband and I started dating when we worked together on the same product planning team 3 years after I joined the company. My husband, who was energetically leading the team, seemed reliable to me, though a bit self-righteous. Maybe I felt that way because I lost my father early and grew up with just my mother. My mother also passed away from illness 2 years ago, and now I have no family other than my in-laws. Shortly after I got married, my mother fell ill and needed care. So I quit my job to take care of her. The fact that my husband's family didn't object was probably due to a single comment from Grandpa.
It's only natural to take care of the mother who raised you alone. Don't worry and take good care of her.
Thanks to that, I was able to be by my mother's side every day for a year without financial worries until she passed away. My mother-in-law seemed a bit dissatisfied, but I was truly grateful. However, since Grandpa handed over the company to my father-in-law, everyone's attitude towards him has gradually changed. They no longer listen to his opinions as much. And I can't shake the feeling that they're treating him carelessly. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but watching my mother-in-law and husband's behavior, I can't help but feel that way. My father-in-law's attitude is non-committal. But it feels like he's ignoring Grandpa, as if he's no longer needed since he's practically retired. Watching my in-laws' behavior, I feel somewhat angry.
Hey, don't you think your attitude, Patricia, and yours too, is a bit cold towards Grandpa?
So, what's the big deal?
Grandpa tries to talk to you, and you barely respond. You don't even try to help him. Like I have time to deal with old people.
You can take care of Grandpa.
You're the one with free time. You don't have to talk like that.
Quiet. I'm tired from work.
Don't nag me about unnecessary things.
This is how it goes. No matter what I say, they won't listen to me. My grandfather-in-law doesn't say anything to his family about this. Now, I'm the only one who talks to my grandfather-in-law at home.
Grandpa, the weather is nice today. Shall we go for a little walk outside? Your leg seems to be healing well, and I think it will be good rehabilitation.
Thank you. Let's go out for a bit then. When the two of us went to the park, there were several families with children playing around. My grandfather-in-law looked at the scene with joy.
Christopher and Daniel had times like that too.
Grandpa? I was busy with work and couldn't take care of the children much. Maybe that's why I couldn't raise Christopher and Daniel properly. My grandfather-in-law said with a slightly sad face, almost like he was talking to himself. Christopher is my father-in-law, and Daniel is my husband. I think about how everyone can be kinder to my grandfather-in-law, but I can't come up with a good idea. But then, my in-laws suggested building a house for my grandfather-in-law. This house is over 50 years old, right? The layout is bad, it's hard to use, and instead of spending money on repairs, it would be better to build a new house in a more convenient location.
A new house?
Michael is getting older, and it's good that he only got injured last time, but we never know what will happen. So, let's make the house barrier-free so we won't have trouble if care is needed.
I see.
We can even put Michael's room in the middle so everyone can take care of him easily.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Right. So, it's settled then? And Michael, about the cost.
If it's a house for all of us, I'll take care of it. Talk to Mr. Jones about the money.
Typical Michael. Thank you. We appreciate it.
My mother-in-law smiled happily. It seems to me that they only flatter him when they want money. But if everyone takes care of my grandfather-in-law after moving to the new house, I thought there could be nothing better. Mr. Jones is the company's in-house counsel and also manages my grandfather-in-law's personal assets. My grandfather-in-law liked his character and made him in-house counsel, and it's been nearly 30 years. He's 58 now and the person my grandfather-in-law trusts the most. I've met him several times, and he seems to be a very honest person. He always cares about my grandfather-in-law's health, and sometimes I think he's more like a son than his real sons. Having such people around my grandfather-in-law makes me feel a little relieved. I wasn't informed about where or what kind of house was being built. But my mother-in-law seemed very cheerful, and the three of them were looking at interior design magazines and discussing various things. So it seemed to be going smoothly. Then something unexpected happened. It was revealed that my grandfather-in-law had a debt of $1,820,000.
Wait, what's this about $1,820,000?
My grandfather-in-law had become a co-signer for a loan for a friend's company. But that company was in trouble, and the debt had become my grandfather-in-law's responsibility.
Wait, they're not going to take the house that's under construction, are they?
Since the contract has already been completed, and as Patricia said, it's in the president's name, so it's fine. My mother-in-law seemed relieved at those words.
Oh, thank goodness. I'm glad we did it my way.
Listening to that conversation, I learned for the first time that the house was in my father-in-law's name. Even though my grandfather-in-law had paid for it, putting it in my father-in-law's name seemed just like something my mother-in-law would do. I also wondered why they didn't think of giving up the house to help repay the debt.
Hey, this debt is Michael's fault, and it has nothing to do with us or the company, right?
Well, it was signed in Michael's name.
Oh, good. Then there's no problem.
I couldn't understand what was good about it. But since my grandfather-in-law didn't say anything during that conversation, I didn't intervene either. After all, it's not an amount I could handle. And a few days later, my grandfather-in-law's behavior began to change gradually. Grandpa, what would you like for lunch?
Who are you calling Grandpa? I'm only 50. You have no right to call me that. Huh?
Sorry. Emily, right? I was lost in thought. At first, I thought he was just deep in thought, but when it happened repeatedly, I began to feel uneasy.
Patricia, what are you doing? Where's my meal?
Grandpa, I'm Emily. Patricia is your daughter-in-law. You ate your meal earlier.
I didn't eat. Are you trying to starve me?
I wondered if my grandfather-in-law's condition was triggered by the $1,820,000 debt. And seeing that none of his family members were trying to help him might have been a double shock. What can I do for him? I tried to take my grandfather-in-law to the hospital, but he refused to go. He might not want to admit that he might have dementia. I don't want to force him, but I can't do anything on my own. I consulted my husband, but he only replied that it had nothing to do with him. I can't rely on my mother-in-law either. So I thought my father-in-law was the only option.
Yeah, I heard from Patricia and Daniel. They think it might be dementia?
Can you go to the hospital with us?
But it's not that bad yet, right? If we go to the hospital, others will find out. My father having dementia.
There are good medications now that can slow the progression.
Well, there's no need to rush. Let's watch him a little longer. Emily is here, so it'll be fine, right? I can't help but think how unreliable these people are. I can't depend on them. Grandpa, let's go to the hospital. Let's get you properly examined.
Who are you? Where are you planning to take me? You're up to no good.
I almost cry thinking about how my once kind grandfather-in-law has become so stubborn. But my mother-in-law just laughs, amused. Even if he was the chairman, it's over for him now. But now everything, even the company, is all Christopher's.
Patricia, Grandpa isn't completely unaware. He's listening to everything.
He'll forget everything soon. He'll start wandering, dribbling. Just thinking about it gives me chills. He's nothing but a nuisance now.
How can you say that? Grandpa has worked hard for the family all his life.
My mother-in-law's words make me angry and sad. But my grandfather-in-law just smiles. See? This old man doesn't understand anything.
Patricia!
I'm furious at my mother-in-law's laughing and words. But soon, the new house will be ready. Things might change once we move there. Since it's a house that Grandpa built, the family might show some gratitude and be kind to him. I couldn't completely abandon that faint hope. And 2 months later, the house was finally built. For days, I had been forced to pack my in-laws and husband's belongings, while my father-in-law's and my things were mostly untouched. Even when I tried to pack my things, my in-laws and husband kept giving me tasks, so I couldn't make any progress. But I thought it would be fine to move the small things later since this house wasn't going away. On moving day, after moving most of the things, I went to call my father-in-law, but my husband said, you and Grandpa can stay here.
What?
You can stay in this house.
We don't need any extra baggage in the new house.
In other words, you and Grandpa will live here from now on. And I'll give you Grandpa's debt too. Well, you can at least be a housekeeper.
Hey, let's go. Yeah, I'm coming. Good luck with the debt repayment and live-in care.
With those words, my in-laws cheerfully got into the car and left. I was stunned for a while. I couldn't immediately understand what had just happened. Were we just abandoned? And not just me, but my grandfather-in-law too. Only they would live in the new house. It took me a while to understand because it was beyond my imagination that someone could do something so cruel. How should I explain this to my grandfather-in-law? I slowly returned to the back room. I don't mind taking care of my grandfather-in-law at all. That was my intention from the start. As I was about to timidly call out to him, who was sitting with his back to me, he seemed to sense my presence and turned around before I could speak. Have they gone already? My grandfather-in-law's expression as he said that looked completely different from the dazed look he had just moments ago. To be frank, he seemed like a different person. I thought maybe a different symptom had emerged. But the next moment, my grandfather-in-law smiled. And then, his following words surprised me. As I was talking to my grandfather-in-law, Mr. Jones came. Chairman, have you finished getting rid of the unnecessary staff?
Yes, it's all done. Let's go, shall we? Where are we going? Of course, to the new house.
I left the house where I had been living, led by my grandfather-in-law, without understanding what was happening. The next month, countless calls came from my mother-in-law and husband. My grandfather-in-law said he wouldn't deal with them anymore, but I answered my husband's call because of the divorce.
Hey, Emily! Is Grandpa with you? When I went to the old house, it was for sale. It's not worth $1,820,000, so you can't repay the debt. Is that why you did that? What do you mean? Put Grandpa on. Dad said he can't get in touch at all. That forgetful old man has done something outrageous.
I knew what he was talking about, but I wanted to hear what my husband would say.
Grandpa sold the company's stocks to the executive director. Thanks to that, the executive director became the largest shareholder, and a shareholders' meeting and board meeting were held. And Dad was dismissed as president.
But the executive director is well liked, and maybe Grandpa thought he was better to hand over the company to?
The executive director must have deceived the senile old man into selling the stocks. This is invalid.
You seem to be misunderstanding something, but Grandpa doesn't have dementia. If anything, he seems more coherent than before.
What?
I too, until that moving day, had seriously thought that my grandfather-in-law had dementia. It seems that my grandfather-in-law had been suspicious from the time my mother-in-law said she would build a house to live with him. So he devised a plan. He pretended to have dementia to see how my in-laws and husband would react. As expected, they showed their true colors one after another. In the end, they left my grandfather-in-law and me behind. I struggled to hold back my laughter because everything went exactly as I expected. My grandfather-in-law said. I was surprised, relieved, and a little conflicted.
To deceive the enemy, you must first deceive your allies.
He laughed. He seemed to have been getting regular updates on the company from the executive director and Mr. Jones. With my grandfather-in-law gone, my father-in-law and husband did as they pleased. Self-righteous, completely ignoring the opinions of the employees. Constant entertaining at the company's expense. He had handed over the company to my father-in-law, but he was worried about the future, so he took this measure. In the end, he decided he couldn't entrust it to his son and left it to the executive director.
What about the $1,820,000 debt?
That's gone now. Indeed, my grandfather-in-law had been a guarantor for a friend's debt. But he also owned personal assets that exceeded that. After stepping back from the company's operations, he had invested in real estate and made a considerable profit. So there was no problem at all, but if I had said that, it was clear that my mother-in-law and husband would target it. That's why I only talked about the debt. The friend was the son of a benefactor who had helped my father-in-law when he was young. Moreover, since then, the countryside land that the son owned was going to be developed into a resort. And he was able to sell it at a high price, so there was no need to take on the debt.
You're kidding!
But more importantly, are you guys okay?
We're not okay. Both my father and I were denounced by the company. What should we do now?
Well, there's also the mortgage on the house.
What? What do you mean, the mortgage on the house?
Huh? You haven't realized it yet?
The house money should have been all paid by Grandpa.
Maybe you don't remember what Grandpa said at that time? When my mother-in-law talked to my grandfather-in-law about money, he had set the condition that if it's a house where everyone, including me, will live. In other words, if that wasn't the case, he wouldn't pay. Even if the house was in my father-in-law's name, my grandfather-in-law intended to pay if everyone was living together. That's just because you assumed Grandpa would pay and didn't look at the documents properly, right? Christopher signing without checking everything, it shows he really didn't have the qualities of a president.
You're kidding!
Afterward, my parents-in-law ended up losing the house they had built because they couldn't pay the mortgage. Now they live in an old apartment over 50 years old and are struggling to pay off the unpaid loan. My mother-in-law and husband have been contacting me alternately, saying we should all live together, but that's impossible now. My grandfather-in-law has retired from his chairman position, and now he has bought an old house in the countryside, and we are living together. Emily, you can go and live wherever you like, freely. You don't have to worry about living expenses. My grandfather-in-law told me, but I chose to be with him. If I'm not in the way, please let me be with you. When I said that, my grandfather-in-law's eyes welled up with tears. Thanks to Mr. Jones, the divorce was finalized, and procedures were taken to exclude my former father-in-law and former husband from inheritance. And I became my grandfather-in-law's adopted daughter. If anything happens to my grandfather-in-law, who has become my father, I intend to take care of him until the end. Now, the two of us enjoy working in the fields together.
Dad, look at this radish. It's big.
In the pouring sunlight, warm moments flow. I wish for these days to continue even one day longer. My husband, Charles, tells me he's going to marry the woman he's been seeing and asks for a divorce. Let's not waste time with property division, just leave quickly. Sharon taunts me, as if she's relishing in my misery. Donald, too, is infatuated with a woman he met at a bar. They don't want to live with me. I'll leave, just as you wish. But before that, I'll give you a piece of my mind. My name is Joy Lynn. Named with the hope of being blessed with much joy, Joy and Joy Lynn, I am a 50-year-old woman whose life hasn't been as joyful as I'd hoped. But now my days are filled with happiness, so I can look back and laugh at the past. Let me take you back to when I was 35. I was about to celebrate my 10th wedding anniversary with Charles. We hadn't been blessed with children, and I found it somewhat painful to hear comments from those around us like, "Do you have any kids?" and "Children are wonderful, you know." Conversations with Charles had dwindled, partly because he had been promoted a few years earlier, became busier with work, and traveled frequently. I was working too, so we hardly saw each other. No wonder we didn't have children. Well, this too is a form of marriage, and it's easier on our minds. Having children or not, it doesn't matter. That's what I thought. One day, our family grew in a way we hadn't expected. It wasn't an angelic baby that arrived. Instead, it was a parents-in-law that seemed like a demon from hell. Apparently, right after we got married, the parents-in-law had been constantly telling Charles that they wanted to live with us. Charles weighed the hassle of living together against the hassle of continually refusing. As a result, he decided that living together would be less of a hassle. Surprisingly rational, or not. Hey, I didn't agree to live together. According to Charles, I'm hardly ever home, so it's fine. It might be fine for you. But still, as Charles said, it's fine. If the parents-in-law are good people. I had a hard time with these parents-in-law even before we started living together. They were the ones who persistently asked me, "When are you having kids?" Sharon would always say,
"The more children you have, the better," every time we met.
"But you only gave birth to Charles, right?" Living with such parents-in-law, it's a stomach-churning story. I wonder how living together will turn out. My expectations were quickly betrayed. Not in a good way. It turned out even worse than I thought. Donald solemnly declared as we started living together, "We won't give you any pension or living expenses." Then Sharon continued with a smile,
"Let's go with that arrangement."
"Wait, what kind of arrangement is that?" Charles also said something like, "We both work, so we can manage without receiving living expenses." So Charles is one of them, too. I had never been particularly dissatisfied with Charles until now. I didn't expect much from a husband even before we got married. I thought a husband who doesn't get angry easily and works hard was good enough. But now, a wave of complaints that I never had before came rushing in. Moreover, as I lived with the parents-in-law for a while, I gradually understood the real reason they wanted to live with us. Donald would often go out somewhere at night. I believed him when he said he was going out to drink with friends. But then, I found a point card from what you'd call a nightclub and a business card with Nancy written on it in the laundry. There are various types of bars, but this was clearly a service industry that directly satisfies a man's desires. I see, he likes Nancy. I can't believe he's still so energetic at his age. I thought. Of course, I meant it in a bad way. No wonder he can't give us living expenses, he's spending it on Nancy. It can't be helped. No way. On the other hand, Sharon gradually started to harass me. Moreover, she was cunning and intensified the harassment gradually, so much so that even I didn't notice at first. At first, I thought she was being kind. I could have endured it if it had just been about the way I fold laundry or season my cooking, but there were times when Sharon called me by the name of Charles's ex-girlfriend. Every time, Sharon would apologize, saying, "I remember her strongly because she was the first girlfriend Charles introduced me to. I didn't do it on purpose. I'm sorry." At first, I thought, Sharon is old, so maybe such things happen. But as it continued, I realized something was off. Speaking of which, every time I took a shower, the bathroom was always dirty. I initially thought the mess in the bathroom was from Charles and the others who had gone in before, but no one complained about the bathroom being dirty. So, without a doubt, it must have been Sharon who was in before me. There were other instances too, like when Sharon, mistakenly thinking everyone had already bathed on a snowy day, unplugged the bathtub, leaving me to shower in the freezing cold. She also once took my favorite necklace from the closet without asking and then lost it. Each time, Sharon would say, "I didn't do it on purpose. I just wasn't thinking. I'm sorry." While it's possible to accidentally shower or call someone by the wrong name, taking jewelry without permission is not something that can be brushed off as a mere oversight. I began to suspect that maybe this was all intentional harassment aimed at me. When I saw Sharon angrily sitting at the dining table saying, "My dinner is late because Joylyn came home late," I finally realized it was indeed harassment, albeit subtle. Come to think of it, Sharon hasn't done any housework since she came to our home. She throws her socks inside out into the laundry and tosses bottles into the trash without removing the labels, adding minor inconveniences every time. She complains if meals are late and if the sheets are messy, and sometimes she even throws things. I finally understood. Our home was indeed graced by the arrival of a baby. 2 of them, in fact, both big and delightfully stubborn. Exhausted from my job as a caregiver, all I wanted was to quickly escape this situation and go to bed, so I kept silently tolerating Sharon's behavior. I didn't have the energy to argue with anyone when I returned home. I wanted to rest as quickly as possible, even if it was just for a moment. While I was exhausted and didn't notice at first, it seemed that Sharon knew about Donald's night outings. When an actress appeared on TV, Sharon persistently asked Donald, "Donald, don't you like girls like her?" "You do, don't you?" The actress's name was Nancy. The same as the girl from the bar. Donald looked pale. After that incident, I asked Sharon once, "Are you okay with Donald going out like that?" Sharon replied, "If I get a divorce, I'll be someone who has a divorce history at this age, right? That's miserable, and it looks bad to society. Of course, I don't like it. But he's just playing with professionals at the bar, right? If he's not serious, I can accept it." She wasn't holding back from divorce because of her concern for Donald, but rather she feared becoming someone with a history of divorce. I couldn't understand it. Turning a blind eye to infidelity must be causing her significant internal stress. And Sharon's outlet for that stress was harassing me. By harassing me, not only could she vent her stress, but she could also avoid doing housework. It was like killing two birds with one stone. I was certain. I knew why Sharon had insisted on living with Charles. Since living with the parents-in-law, Charles increasingly made excuses not to come home, saying he had to work overtime. This house was rotten from the roots to the pillars. At this rate, even I might end up crushed under the rotten floorboards. It happened one day, about 6 months after we started living together. Charles, who rarely had the same day off, said something unexpected. "Please, let's get a divorce." It was a bolt from the blue. It turns out, Charles had been having an affair with a classmate for a long time. He even said he wanted to marry this person, and I had no clue. Apparently, they started dating just before he got promoted. I thought he was working hard for our sake, but could it have been for his classmate? Was it my fault for not paying attention to Charles's behavior, using my exhaustion as an excuse? I thought affairs only happened on TV and to people like Donald. No, maybe it's natural for Charles to cheat, given that Donald does it too. "Once this house is ready, my girlfriend and I are moving in. You can take your things and leave," Charles declared. Sharon asked, "What's going to happen to us?" "You can stay, my girlfriend doesn't mind sharing," Charles responded.
What a nice girl. Joylyn, don't let her get away with it if she asks for property division. We're going to use this house and everything in it. Donald chimed in. Yeah, she's really a good girl. Especially if she's cuter than Joylyn.
Sharon shot Donald a look as if to say, "There you go again with women." But Charles and Donald just laughed. "These people are hopeless." I replied, "All right. I'm fine with a divorce. There's a memorial ceremony in Atlanta soon, right? Can you wait until then? Planning on enjoying the feast at the memorial ceremony, are you?" How pathetic. There's no way I'm taking a woman who's divorcing me. Just leave already. Who's the pathetic one here? Who cares about the food? Despite everything, Sharon and I, the only women in the room and both cheated on, can't seem to get along. No, I was planning to move out on that day. Going back home is a bit embarrassing since I was cheated on. Finding a place and handling the paperwork takes time. I thought it would work out around then. Charles, not Sharon, replied condescendingly. If that's the case, fine. Cheating and then acting all high and mighty. Don't underestimate me. I'll destroy everything. A week passed, and the long-awaited day of revenge finally arrived. That day, my parents-in-law and Charles left the house early in the morning to attend a memorial ceremony in Atlanta. They planned to return by evening. All right then. Let's give it a try. The garbage collection service I had hired arrived. I had them load all the furniture in the house into the truck. The sofa, the microwave, Charles' and parents-in-law's bed, and Sharon's clothes that had accumulated since moving in, Charles's favorite new vacuum cleaner, even the refrigerator and its contents. All of it gone. Ah, minimalism is wonderful. With each item thrown away, it felt like my troubles were disappearing. Next, the movers came to transport my important belongings to my new place. By evening, the house was empty. The front door made a sound. It seemed Charles and the others had returned. I decided to greet them one last time as a good wife and stood at the entrance with a smile. What, you're still here? Charles frowned openly. So did my parents-in-law.
Oh, that's harsh. It's the last time, so it's fine to see each other's faces before leaving, right? I wanted to see your face.
Huh? You still care about me? Charles blushes slightly. He chuckles. What's the big deal?
Fine. Let's have a meal together one last time, shall we? Charles, strangely in a good mood, heads towards the living room saying this, followed by Sharon, who looks exasperated, saying,
Charles is so sweet.
Donald, on the other hand, turns to me with a proud look, saying, That's my son. I'm baffled. Having a meal, huh? Would have been a nice way to part if there was anything left to eat.
Huh? What? What? Ah!
Understanding the meaning of my words, Charles, upon opening the living room door, lets out a silent exclamation. Sharon, annoyed, peeks into the living room after Charles and exclaims just like him.
What? Ah!
Donald does the same.
Wait, Joylyn, WHY, the fridge, no, even the furniture. Appliances too. Why is there nothing anywhere?
Of course, I threw them out. The house feels much bigger now, doesn't it? I thought it would be bad to leave old furniture for your new life with your girlfriend. Consider it my parting gift.
Threw them out. Why? Weren't you preparing to move?
I've already moved. You throw away things you don't need when you move, right? Have you forgotten? Most of the things we bought when we got married were purchased with my money. Nothing bad will happen just because I, who didn't need them, threw them away. At my words, Charles points at me, his mouth moving but no words coming out. He seems too shocked to speak. With this, I'll forego any division of property. Well, there's hardly anything to divide anyway. Sharon, furious at my smile, says,
What have you done?
I'll return that phrase to your foolish son. There are limits to indecency, like cheating while having a wife and then saying to leave because you're remarrying. Wasn't your upbringing at fault? How could you speak to me like that? You were such a terrible daughter-in-law. Do you still consider yourself my mother-in-law? To me, you're just another old lady. I speak with a malicious smile, and Sharon mutters, So ungracious. Shaking with anger. It's a secret that seeing Sharon angry is starting to be a bit fun. Don't you remember? If I ask for a division of this house, you can't refuse, can you? Without the house, where would you two strangers live? You sold your family home, right? Yes, the PILs had sold their house when they moved in with us. We won't need it anymore, they had said. So, this house was absolutely necessary for them. They sided with their son's affair over his wife, probably thinking, As long as there's a house with a housemaid, anything goes. Hearing my words, perhaps feeling rushed, Donald intervenes. Well, let's settle this amicably, pretending to be a good person. Yes, let's do that. Let's proceed calmly, just like the old just like Donald suggests. Exactly, you know what I'm talking about, Joylyn. Of course. By the way, Donald, wasn't your cell phone broken today? Huh? Oh, yeah. I realized it after leaving the house, it wouldn't turn on. If charging doesn't work, I guess I'll have to consult the store. There's no need for that. Your cell phone is right here. Saying that, I pulled Donald's cell phone from my pocket.
Huh? 2 identical phones? What's going on?
Donald is puzzled. I switched the phones just before you left today. The one I have is the real one, and the one you had is a used one I bought and removed the battery. So, it won't turn on.
What?
Since you aren't tech savvy, I thought you'd just give up easily thinking it's broken or out of battery. It seems like a huge success. Smiling, I get asked by Donald.
Why would you do that?
Why, you wonder? Well, I have no clue. Speaking of which, You received an email today from your beloved Nancy saying she had a good time the other day. You email each other daily, right? I'm so jealous of your close friendship.
What?
Donald gasps, while Sharon glares at him.
So, Donald, you were out with Nancy the other day? Woohoo! More lovey-dovey than with Sharon. But you should put a lock on your phone if you're cheating. You'll get caught easily. See, stop it, Joylyn, this.
But I thought cheating is wrong. Charles cheated on me, and it hurt. I know exactly how Sharon feels. So, I did something nice at the end. I texted Nancy. I'm bored. Let's break up. She was furious.
I was just dealing with this old man because he conveniently gives me money.
Good thing you broke up safely.
Oh, by the way, this is Nancy, Sharon.
Your enemy, take a good look. Saying that, I showed everyone a photo of Nancy and Donald as I returned the phone. That's when it happened. Charles showed a stern expression no one had seen before. Why? My girlfriend is.
What?
Everyone but Charles gasped.
What's going on, Charles?
What are you to Nancy?
No, that's my line, Dad. Why are you taking pictures with Nancy?
Because I'm her boyfriend, obviously.
No, Nancy is my girlfriend.
Isn't your girlfriend your classmate?
We just met at a bar and started hanging out.
Who would have thought that father and son were dating the same person? This development was also surprising for me. Ignoring Sharon and me, who were in shock, the men started a pointless argument about who was more suitable to be Nancy's boyfriend, which eventually escalated to a full-blown brawl, pulling each other's hair. The brawl ended when Charles pulled out a significant amount of Donald's precious, thinning hair. After a glance at the soulless face of Donald, I loudly declared,
"Well, I'm off to my new place. Thank you for everything. I'll be claiming compensation for the affair next time. Bye."
I had said there would be no property division, but I didn't mention compensation. Sharon realized that this was a serious affair and, swinging the bag she was holding, began furiously beating Donald in a rage. Donald stood there, head hung low, as if he had burnt out completely, unable to process everything happening all at once. Watching this living hell unfold beside me, I couldn't stop smiling as I hopped on my beloved scooter and left the scene. Although it's a far stretch, in my mind, I felt like Tom Cruise in Top Gun. Oh, it's been a while since I've ridden down such a refreshing night road. This is the best. Later on, when I proposed divorce, including the alimony, Charles said, "Please wait on the divorce." It seems that Sharon is also considering divorce, and there is a possibility that everyone might lose their homes or their circumstances might change, so he wants to save as much money as possible. He said things like, "Don't you think it's pitiful for us, who once lived together, to face such a difficult situation?" And, "We need money now, but..." I didn't care, so I proceeded with the divorce talks without discussion and took as much money as I could get from Charles and his affair partner. When claiming the alimony, I felt a bit like an outlaw, but I hadn't done anything wrong. I had just done what was natural. Well, maybe tampering with someone's phone was slightly wrong. In the end, around the same time as our divorce, it seemed that Sharon also divorced Donald. Apparently, Donald and Nancy's affair had been going on for over 5 years, and Sharon couldn't forgive that they had a relationship in private as well. I don't quite understand why bar hopping is forgivable but private relationships aren't. I thought there are various forms of marriage. Well, in the end, we're not married anymore anyway. Donald was sued for alimony by Sharon, and Charles was sued for alimony by me,
so the saying blood will out held true, and the parents-in-law are now all scattered. Sharon, having been cheated on by Donald, seemed to have grown to despise men in general, including Charles, who had abandoned me in a similar manner. As a result, Charles and Sharon, after her divorce, are slowly becoming distant, though they do have minimal conversations. Donald, jobless, turned to Charles for help but was rejected, as Charles himself was barely scraping by. Charles is juggling multiple jobs, while Sharon, who had been a housewife since her early marriage, is experiencing work for the first time with a part-time job. Donald became a part-time worker living in a cheap hotel. Charles, eager to remarry Nancy, learned that she wasn't interested. Nancy saw both Charles and Donald as mere extensions of her bar work, as convenient sources of money. It turned out that Nancy had other men besides Charles in the same capacity. Charles, having been classmates with her, mistook her for being serious and believed she was his destiny. But in reality, it was a foolish and trivial story. In the end, both men were deemed unnecessary by Nancy, even as convenient sources of money, and were discarded. From my perspective, I thought, since I'm leaving, might as well destroy everything in the process. Just as I aimed. I'm very satisfied having witnessed this spectacular collapse of a family. No one in that family valued each other, only caring about themselves. So, the outcome was, in a way, inevitable. Essentially, they were a family in name only, lacking any compassion. Now, I think it was good that I got away from that household. On the other hand, while I still come home exhausted from work every day, living alone has freed up my time as I no longer need to allocate it for someone else. I have more freedom than when I was married. Back when I was married, I hardly had time to meet my college friends, but now I can travel with them on my days off and even have time for my hobbies. In college, I was part of the choir, so I decided to join a karaoke club. It seems that one can continue to improve in music, no matter the age. I consistently win at the club's competitions and even earn cash prizes. Thanks to that, my wallet is always warmly filled. Hee hee. At the facility where I work, my colleagues suggested hosting a karaoke recreation event since I'm good at it, and it was a huge hit. I received many compliments like "you're so good," and was thrilled to bring smiles to the residents through my personal hobby, something I hadn't expected. By the way, my go-to performances are Unchained Melody and My Heart Will Go On. The lyrics of older songs are just so wonderful. I don't really understand recent songs, but I guess I should study up. Though my days aren't glamorous, I'm surrounded by friendly colleagues, trustworthy friends, and kind residents who feel like family beyond work boundaries. Finally, it seems like I've become the Joylyn I was meant to be. From now on, I aim to be someone who not only receives joy, but also shares it with others. All right. Let's do our best at work today. I'll wholeheartedly celebrate the residents' birthdays. Didn't you hear me? So, a high school graduate is even poor in hearing. I'm saying I want my child to be born to a more accomplished woman. My genes are too good to be wasted on a mere high school grad. Before we got married, my husband used to say that educational background didn't matter in love. Now, he berates me, a high school graduate, as trash and says he's leaving to remarry a woman with an elite college degree. Oh man, what a misfortune to have a wife with such low education. I'm truly unlucky. With those parting words, he left to elope with the elite college graduate woman. My name is Megan and I turned 27 this year. I married Leo, 3 years my senior. I'm a high school graduate working as an office worker in a trading company, and I met him through a friend from high school. Unlike me, he graduated from a prestigious university and works in sales at a major corporation, a true elite. Initially, I felt unworthy of such an amazing person, but every time we met, educational background doesn't matter. I like you for who you are, he would say. I believed his words and married him. But now, I regret that decision. As soon as we got married, he started looking down on me for my education and income. To him, a high school grad working at a small trading company, I might seem like an underachiever. But it was he who wanted to marry me. During our relationship, sensing my inferiority complex, he comforted me with kind words, now a shadow of his former self.
Megan, you should find a new job. It's embarrassing to have a wife working for such a low-income company.
He says this without any remorse.
But I don't want to go to a busier company right now, especially since we're trying to conceive. Besides, I like my current job and the company.
My voice fades under his cold gaze. He sighs in annoyance and retreats to the bedroom before I can say anything else. He probably thought I was going to talk about trying to conceive again. He is right. I wanted to have some time to talk with him about trying to conceive and not making any progress. I've been wanting to have a child since we got married, and he used to be enthusiastic about having 3 siblings. But now, there's no hope of having a child. Whenever I gently ask for his cooperation in trying to conceive,
I don't want to raise a child born to a high school grad.
He avoids me, saying. Shocked by his words, I've been unable to have a proper conversation with him. Our marriage feels empty. He constantly belittles me, demanding gratitude for picking up an elite like himself, and pushes all household chores onto me. Lately, he's even started skimping on living expenses. Apparently, he thinks I spend too much and should save more. I've been cutting back as much as possible, but sometimes I have to dip into my savings from before we were married. I should naturally want a divorce by now, but I can't bring myself to say it to him. I'm afraid of how he might react. Plus, I don't want to betray my parents, who were so happy about our marriage and looking forward to their first grandchild. As our marriage grew colder, he spent less and less time at home. Coming home in the morning became the norm. When he did come home late at night, he'd wake me up to make him snacks, among other outrageous behaviors. And every time he returned late at night, I could smell women's perfume on him. Even without a woman's intuition, it was clear he was cheating. But I was too scared to confront the truth. Then, one day, he said he was leaving.
My real girlfriend is finally pregnant.
I'm moving in with her tomorrow. I was stunned. Didn't you hear me?
A high school grad is even bad at listening.
My superior genes are too good for someone like you. He ranted without being asked. He had been cheating, and the woman was a younger graduate from the same prestigious university as him. She got pregnant, so he decided to cut ties with me and remarry her. She was a new employee, you see.
Getting married and taking maternity leave right after joining would affect her career. And since I'm such a great catch, I get a lot of introductions to women from my boss. So I thought I'd marry some convenient woman until she finished her rookie year.
That convenient woman turned out to be me. With no need to hide anything anymore, his face was more hideous than I'd ever seen.
You work for a trading company, right? Even if it's small, I thought you might have some useful connections or manufacturers. But what a mistake! You have no decent contacts, and all you do is nag about kids, being just a high school grad.
He said that, looking at me. As I stood there speechless, he laughed mockingly and stood up from the sofa.
Oh man. To be married to such a low-educated woman. I am truly unfortunate. A worthless woman like you wasting my precious time.
Without even a glance at me, he walked out the front door. I listened to the sound of the door locking and took deep breaths. My tense body slowly relaxed, and cold sweat broke out all over me. Now that I understood Leo's scheme, I had no hesitation. I quickly had my dinner and secluded myself in my room before he returned. The next day, I left home early for work and picked up divorce papers. My hands trembling with nerves, I managed to open the door to find no sign of Leo. His favorite sofa in the living room was also gone. Searching the house, I found all of his belongings missing. I hadn't seen him since he left yesterday. On the table, I saw a stack of papers and a thin envelope. Turning over his neatly written note, I found completed divorce papers. The note said, "I've told the in-laws, so don't contact me again." I emotionlessly filled in the blanks on the divorce papers. Not a tear was shed. After finishing, I picked up the envelope marked settlement money. Inside, there were only $2,000. Perhaps he intended it as compensation for the divorce. Though far too little, I could use it to hire a lawyer for a proper settlement claim. I was planning to visit a law firm on the weekend when I received a call. It was from the house management company, saying the rent for the last and current month was overdue. Unable to reach Leo, they called my mobile. My savings, already depleted from covering living expenses, were insufficient. I had no choice but to use the $2,000 from the envelope. At the law firm, they told me it would be difficult to claim more. Most of the money left by him had already been spent on rent. It seemed that by using the rent money, I had accepted the settlement from Leo. Since we lived together, I had an obligation to pay rent. Knowing I had no savings, he must have deliberately left the $2,000 to prevent me from taking further action. I had unwittingly used the money he left. With no savings and most of my income going to rent, I couldn't afford to live there. I began searching for cheaper accommodation and soon moved back to my parents' house after informing them of the divorce. The shock made me never want to marry again, but my parents thought differently. Back home, they encouraged me daily, saying I was still young enough for marriage and children. Feeling guilty about disappointing them, I started looking for a new partner while commuting to my now distant job. I filled my schedule quickly, perhaps to distract myself. Maybe I wanted to overwrite that nightmarish marriage with a fulfilling life. My efforts bore fruit sooner than expected. During my search for a partner, I clicked with a man, and 2 years after my divorce, I was remarried and had a daughter. My new husband, Anthony, was the same age as me and also a high school graduate. He worked at a car repair shop near my parents' house and we met at a local marriage party. Anthony was self-conscious about being a high school graduate, but I never chose people based on their education, unlike my ex-husband. Anthony never cared about my education either and was always generous and never looked down on people. We set up our new home near my parents' house, and I was busy yet happy with work and raising our child. In the whirlwind of days, I had long forgotten Leo, my ex-husband. It was about 10 years after the divorce when I unexpectedly ran into him. I was at a German language speech competition with my daughter. "Is that Megan?" I turned around when a man called out from behind. Though he had aged in the last decade, I recognized that face I wished I could forget. Next to Leo stood a boy about the same age as my daughter. Noticing my gaze, he said with an untroubled smile, "He's my son with Olivia. She's an elite, a state university graduate. We're paying a lot for his gifted education." Olivia must be the college graduate he eloped with. He bragged about his child's intelligence, ignoring me. As I remained silent, he glanced at my daughter. "Where's your husband?" "Let me guess, he's a high school grad too, right?" It was true, but admitting that my husband was also a high school graduate would only invite more insults. Wanting to avoid trouble, I didn't confirm or deny, but quickly left with my daughter. I knew it, children of high school grads have a different look. Just like those foolish faces around here. No way such a child can speak decent German. He said mockingly, stepping in front of us. I was stunned by his audacity to look down on others, even children, in front of his own child. Though my daughter didn't understand the meaning of high school grad, she sensed she was being insulted and her face twisted as if she was about to cry. Seeing this, I glared at him. "Can't you stop insulting even children? Aren't you ashamed as a dad?" My anger didn't faze him. It's the truth. A high school grad's child participating in a German contest is absurd. Such children should just play in the park. He said his piece and disappeared into the crowd with his child. Anger boiled within me, but seeing my daughter's anxious face, I composed myself. "It's okay, you've practiced a lot. Just do like we did at home, and you'll win. Mom guarantees it." I spoke to her quietly, meeting her eyes. As her mother, I had to be strong. She nodded slowly, digesting my words. After registering, I took my seat in the audience. Now, it was just a matter of trusting my child's abilities. I took a deep breath, waiting for the competition to start. Most children, including Leo, were overwhelmed by nerves and the atmosphere, giving poor speeches. My daughter, however, spoke fluently and clearly, the best of all the participants. My prediction was right. She won the German speech competition. Leaving the venue with her, holding a large bouquet and wearing a medal around her neck. We planned to celebrate at a fancy restaurant.
Megan! Wait!
A loud voice called from behind. I quickly shielded my daughter and turned to face Leo. His child's eyes were red from crying. Enviously looking at my daughter's medal.
It's ridiculous that your child won. A child raised by a high school grad speaking so well.
He was upset that his child hadn't won, and my daughter had. Assuming we couldn't possibly speak German, he ranted. People exiting the venue watched him curiously, but he seemed oblivious.
Which school did you send her to? Or did you hire a tutor from your meager earnings?
I haven't enrolled her in any classes, nor have I hired a tutor. When I stated this simply, he looked at me incredulously.
There's no way. You can't even speak German properly.
Have you forgotten what I do? He looked puzzled. Working in a trading company's office, you need a decent command of German. Plus, Grandpa lives in Germany, so I grew up hearing German. My daughter learned it naturally through conversations with him. I patted my daughter's head, who was peeking from behind me. I've been speaking German with my grandfather since I was a child. I chose to work in the trading company to utilize my German skills. When my daughter was born, we often video called him to show him her growth, and she naturally started speaking German. I never forced German education on her. But gradually, she began watching German cartoons on streaming sites and picking up German books for kids at bookstores. Anthony and I just supported her interests. It seems my daughter, naturally interacting with my grandfather, became fluent enough to converse without a translator. Leo started to shiver. With anger as I explained. His face flushed with humiliation, unable to accept defeat from someone he looked down upon.
That's unbelievable. I'll complain to the organizers. My child has been unfairly judged.
He stormed back into the venue, leaving his child alone. Unable to leave his child unattended, I waited silently for him to return. Soon, 2 security guards escorted him out of the venue. He gritted his teeth, clearly upset by my daughter's victory. As he approached brazenly, a woman's voice unexpectedly called out to him.
Leo, what a coincidence to see you here.
The woman, wearing a neat pantsuit and a speech competition staff badge, caught his attention. With her arrival, he calmed his anger and tensed up. Unable to leave, I stood there with my daughter hidden behind me, watching the scene.
Do you have a child, Leo? I heard you were single. Is she your wife?
I shook my head to her unexpected question.
No, he's my ex-husband. Then, is this child yours and Leo's?
She eyed the boy standing beside Leo.
No, that's his child with the woman he married after our divorce.
Her eyes sharpened. Leo, pale and sweating, couldn't hide his shock. The aftermath was predictable. Sensing trouble, I quickly left the scene. Turns out, Leo, after marrying a college graduate, had been falsely claiming to be single and was involved with a woman who graduated from a prestigious foreign university. She was involved in organizing the speech competition and realized she was the other woman when she saw him with his child. His wife's fury over the affair exploded. The next day, she took their child and returned to her parents' home. Now, Leo is burdened with child support until his child reaches adulthood, compensation for the affair, and education loan payments. Rumors spread uncontrollably, revealing his pattern of switching women based on their education, leading to his forced resignation. My daughter later participated in a national German speech competition. Though she didn't win, her near-native proficiency drew attention, deepening her interest in German. Encouraged by Anthony, I left the trading company. And now, I started a German language school at home, also assisting my grandfather with novel translations.
Looks like your company is going under.
The words were spat out with a look of sheer schadenfreude. Our company has always been looked down upon by her. Being in charge of dealing with her, I've been on the receiving end of this kind of abuse for a while.
What are you talking about? This is a huge loss, and it's troubling. Even if it's tough, you're just a secondary contractor after all. Why not look for a new job if your company's sales go down?
After placing a $300,000 order and canceling it at the last minute, and then saying something like this, she is really out of line. Her attitude and the way she treats our company are something I can't deal with on my own. But then, a chance encounter showed me a way to avoid the $300,000 loss.
Are you kidding, huh? It's your company that's going to go under, I suppose. What?
Thus, Carol Smith was about to face some serious trouble. I'm Emily White. I'm turning 48 this year. I was married once when I was younger. But I got divorced 5 years ago, and now I'm single. I had a child in elementary school, but when my husband and I split, he took our child, and I moved out. I used to be a housewife when I was married. My husband was domineering, and I spent my days walking on eggshells around him. After the divorce, I hated the thought of marriage and couldn't imagine remarrying. I decided to live on my own. But as a single woman with a past as a housewife, I had no reliable source of income. That's when I stumbled upon a job ad for a web development company and managed to get a position as a secondary contractor. It was tough at first since I had no knowledge in the field. I was over 40 at the time and worked hard not to be outdone by age. Thankfully, I managed to keep up with the younger employees. Then, I was recognized by the sales manager and transferred to the sales department. Dealing with clients was challenging, but I found that I was good at sales and enjoyed it. However, we were trading with Dynamic Creations Inc. as our client, but its president's daughter named Carol Smith was incompetent, rude, and looked down on secondary contractors. I was troubled by her attitude many times.
I've been feeling a bit off lately.
Being at the age for menopause, my OB/GYN advised me not to stress too much. But the stress seemed to only increase no matter how much I tried to alleviate it. As soon as I arrived at work, there was a call from Carol.
White speaking, how can I help you?
It's Smith.
The web modifications you did are causing problems again.
Can you fix it quickly?
Get an engineer on it.
It seemed that a part of the web page we worked on for their company was malfunctioning, and they wanted it fixed quickly. But that issue was already fixed last month, and after rechecking, there were no problems.
Didn't you tamper with it somehow?
Of course not.
It's your company's incompetence that's causing this.
Fix it fast. Reluctantly, I explained the situation to our engineers and asked them to handle it. However, they reported that the malfunction was not due to anything they did, but rather someone else's interference.
Ms. Smith, I have a report. According to our engineers, the malfunction is occurring in a part that our company didn't handle. Maybe someone else tampered with it?
What are you talking about?
I won't accept such an excuse. The malfunction caused a lot of inconvenience to our customers.
I didn't want to admit any fault on our company's part without evidence, but decided to apologize to resolve the situation.
I'm sorry.
Oh well.
It's not a big deal this time. We'll be billing you for the consignment fee.
What?
What are you saying? Do it for free.
She hung up unilaterally. It wasn't our company's fault. Carol, this president's daughter, pretends to know about the web but complains like this, making our engineers reluctant to work with her company. According to the engineers, it seemed likely that an inexperienced engineer had made some sort of error that caused the malfunction. Even though our company's engineers didn't cause the issue, we were called in and ended up not getting paid for it. I kept getting complaints from the engineers, and she blamed me unilaterally, so I was about to burst with stress. That evening, I decided to go to a bar I had wanted to try for a while, hoping to unwind with a drink. I planned to enjoy a quiet drink alone. I ordered my favorite food, sipped my preferred drink, and was pleasantly tipsy when I noticed two women enjoying their drinks at the table behind me. One of them was Carol. Maybe she was with a colleague. The woman with her was elegantly dressed. You know, the employees at that secondary contractor are so incompetent, it's frustrating. The woman with her just nodded and smiled, lightly agreeing. Secondary contractor. Were they talking about our company? There might be other secondary contractors they work with, but I was curious and listened in. By then, my buzz had worn off. So, this weird auntie is my contact at the secondary contractor. You'd think salespeople would be more stylish, right? But this auntie looks so ordinary. The other woman just chuckled without comment. Carol kept talking. That auntie, she's divorced and used to be a housewife. It's so uncool. A woman who doesn't care about her appearance. I wonder what she's thinking. It's kind of amusing to me, a good stress reliever. It was definitely about me, divorced and a former housewife. I don't pay much attention to my looks. More like, I can't afford to spend much on it. So I always wear the same kinds of clothes and hardly put on makeup. I couldn't stand being there anymore and left the bar. Unnoticed by Carol. The bar, meant to be my stress reliever, ended up being another unpleasant experience. Back home, exhaustion washed over me. I looked at my face in the mirror. Tired, with dark circles under my eyes. I should put on some makeup. I opened my makeup box. Just powder and one old lipstick. I couldn't even remember when I bought them. I opened my closet. It was filled with plain clothes. I sighed. When I was married, I couldn't buy anything with my husband's money, and after the divorce, I had no assets and was desperate for money. I never had a fulfilling life as a woman, balancing work and personal life. But Carol, who doesn't know me, shouldn't be saying such things about me. Tears fell as I looked in the mirror, lost in thought. The next day at work, Carol called again, and I was stressed out from the start. What can I do for you? I need to talk to you. Can you come to our office right away? Yes, I understand. I canceled my other plans and headed to her company. I've arrived. Oh, sit down. I have some good news. Good news. Frankly, good news from she made me feel uneasy. We're starting a new project, and I want your company to handle it. What kind of project? It's completely unrelated to web development. We're thinking of distributing free catalogs to boost sales. Can you handle the production? Our company isn't a printing company, but we have the technology to do more than just web development and advertising. We might be able to use that. I'll check with our company first. By the way, how much are we talking about for the contract? Well, considering everything including subsidiaries and affiliates, it should be around $300,000. A $300,000 order is a significant deal for a secondary contractor like us. It's pressure, but it could also be a big opportunity. I immediately consulted with our president. He tends to leave decisions to the staff, and he quickly gave the go-ahead. It's that kind of company, but I thought I could figure out the production process from scratch. Ms. Smith, regarding our recent discussion, our company will take care of it. Thanks. Let's get the contract sorted then. I think we need about 140 copies. And then, things moved forward. I started preparing for the catalog production, reaching out within the company and to acquaintances. It cost money, but completing the project would bring in $300,000. I managed to make a sample first and showed it to Carol. This looks good. Proceed with it. She approved it surprisingly quickly. The production seemed to be going well. But on the day we started printing, she called and said, "Actually, I've decided to cancel the printing. Consider the contract null and void." What? This means your company is going under. She said this to me with a triumphant tone. What are you talking about? This is a huge loss, and it's troubling. It's troubling, but you're just a secondary contractor. Why not find a new job if your company's sales drop? I reached my breaking point with stress and anger. I won't forgive this. I muttered to myself, canceling a $300,000 order on the day of. It's more than just a loss. Our company is small, and being a secondary contractor, we're always at risk of going under. But the printing was already underway. The catalogs would be finished in a week. I couldn't sleep that night. How will I explain this to the president tomorrow? The next day, feeling demotivated, I couldn't bring myself to go to the office, so I spent my time at a cafe and walking around to escape reality. That's when I bumped into one of my mom friends from my housewife days.
Olivia. Emily? Is that you?
It was a reunion after a long time. Olivia had given me advice on amicable divorce and was someone I relied on a lot for child-related issues. Despite being the same age, she was like a big sister to me. She used to work as a legal advisor for a corporation but now works freelance, focusing on educational outreach for fraud victims.
Emily, we haven't seen each other since your divorce. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. I'm working hard now.
You're doing well.
We ended up chatting for so long that we decided to continue our conversation over drinks at a nearby bar. I couldn't help but vent about my work frustrations to Olivia, whom I hadn't seen in a while. Then she said, "Is the company you work for a secondary contractor for Dynamic Creations Incorporated? How did you know?" I was their counsel for a while, so I'm familiar with the inside story. I remembered that she had been a legal advisor for various companies and knew a lot about different industries. So, what's the real deal? Being a secondary contractor, we can't really oppose them. But their demands are often unreasonable. What's the industry's reputation like? It's bad, just between us. Really? Yes. It's not so much the company, but the president's daughter who has a particularly bad reputation. I thought so. I had always thought Carol was just a mean person who looked down on us because we were a secondary contractor. In my venting session, I decided to tell Olivia about the sudden cancellation of the $300,000 order. So, you're dealing with Mr. Smith's daughter, right? Do you interact with her a lot? It's not just interaction, it's been really tough lately. I told her everything about receiving the $300,000 catalog order, researching techniques, getting cooperation from within the company, and just when I thought we were about to complete a significant project, it got canceled on the day of. I couldn't stop talking. Remembering it all, I felt so frustrated that tears came to my eyes. Emily, that must have been hard. Are you okay? Wipe your tears. I have to report this to the president tomorrow. I might get fired, and our company's revenue will suffer. Well. She thought for a while. Leave this matter to me. What? Just tell me what you want. I'll think about it. There might be something I can do. Who would have thought someone would offer to help like this? I was grateful she was even willing to listen, let alone take it on as her own issue. Tell me what you want. First, I want the contract to be executed properly since it's a big deal for our company. If that's not possible, I want compensation of $300,000. I conveyed my desperate hopes to her. Understood. Anything else? I want Carol to suffer. It's a personal grudge, though. I hesitated to share such resentment with Olivia, but I did it anyway. Okay, got it. Could you report the facts to your president and ask him to contact me? Contact Olivia from the president? What does that mean? Does she have some connection with our company, like being a legal advisor or something? Should I have the president contact you? Yes. Your company's president knows my husband. You didn't know, did you? She smiled confidently, as if to say, leave it to me. I really appreciate this connection. I'll do as you say. Let me consider how to thank you later on. After that conversation, I immediately went back to the office and explained everything to the president. As expected, he was furious. Not with me, but with Dynamic Creations Incorporated. After I mentioned Olivia, he seemed to understand the situation and said he would contact her, then I went back to work. The printing of the catalog had started. There were 140 copies. What to do with this inventory? Then I got a call from Olivia. I've talked with your president. Leave the rest to me. I'd like to come and see the catalog you're currently making. I have the president's permission. Okay. I'll be waiting. About 10 minutes later, Olivia came to the company. She looked at the catalog. Dynamic Creations Incorporated's achievements are all lies. But I'll buy these. What? If I buy them, your company won't suffer a loss. Then, pretending to be an employee from here, I'll visit Dynamic Creations Incorporated under the guise of being your new contact. We'll talk more later. I decided to leave everything to her. I've got an idea. First, we'll pretend you're quitting, and I'll be your replacement to greet Carol. Me quitting? Yes, she looks down on secondary contractors, including you. If you quit, she will target me next. That made sense, but what was her plan? My interest was piqued. That could be true. From there, it's my turn to shine. Just wait and see. Okay. I'll act like I'm quitting. Thus, I went with Olivia to greet Carol. Nice to meet you. I'm Olivia Wilson. What's going on? Ms. White, what does this mean? I'm resigning, effective immediately. Really? So, Ms. Wilson is your replacement? Then Olivia greeted her. Yes, I look forward to working with you. After a brief silence, Carol repeated, You're leaving, huh? Well, it makes sense after losing the $300,000 deal. Yes, I'm leaving. Because of you. Olivia interrupted our conversation and took over. Both of you, please calm down. Ms. Smith, about the catalog, you wanted to cancel it on the day of printing? Yes, I forgot I had already ordered from another secondary contractor. It's just a small company, so stopping the printing on the same day should be feasible, right? Unfortunately, the cancellation was not possible, so the printing is complete. We will send the invoice for payment. Carol paused, seemingly unprepared. That's impossible. Another secondary contractor is already printing it. That sounds like you just forgot you had ordered from another company and panicked, canceling our company's order. I cornered Carol with the realization of her mistake. That's irrelevant. I can't pay your company $300,000. In that case, the printed material becomes our property, and we'll take responsibility for sending it to your company's affiliates. If you're not charging us, that's fine. My boss won't find out about my mistake. Here's the list of companies. We'll arrange the shipment right away. Thank you. I bid farewell to Carol as I left. Thank you for everything, Ms. Smith. Hey, White. Blaming me for your resignation is unfair. It's not my fault. You're going bankrupt anyway. Are you joking, huh? Your company is the one going bankrupt. What? Olivia echoed my sentiment. Your company is the one facing bankruptcy. We left Carol's company. On our way out, Olivia was arranging to send the catalogs to the companies Carol was dealing with, using Carol's company name and hers as the sender. In fact, the catalogs were blank inside. We managed to stop the content from being printed on the day of printing. A few days later, what kind of spiteful thing did you do by quitting? Carol called me furiously. What's wrong? The companies are angry because the catalogs we sent are blank. I'm getting non-stop complaint calls. Imagining her overwhelmed with complaints, I almost laughed but held back. I'm sorry. That's not enough. Thanks to you, deals I was about to close are getting canceled. I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. That's unfortunate. I hung up the phone unilaterally. I felt strangely uplifted. The next day, Carol made an unexpected visit to our office. White, I have a request before you leave. What is it? I doubt there's much I can do. I'll pay the $300,000.
but I need you to tell the companies that the blank catalogs were a mistake. If we lose these deals, I don't know what will happen to my company.
Seeing her weakened, I pressed further.
The catalogs being blank was a terrible mistake. I'm sorry, I had no idea. It's not about that. Please contact the companies and apologize, saying it was your company's mistake. Please, do something. I won't do it. I've been persistently mistreated by you, and I almost suffered a $300,000 loss because of you.
She started crying.
I'll pay the $300,000. That has already been paid. What? This is a company issue, so I explained the situation to your father, the president, and he has already made the payment.
Carol realized that her father, the last person she wanted to know, was now aware of the issue, and her attitude changed.
I'm sorry, it was all my fault. If this gets out, I won't be able to stay at the company because of my many mistakes. I feel terrible for causing such a loss to the company and to Dad. Please forgive me. You know, if your father finds out about this, he'll be embarrassed in front of the entire company.
She was on her knees, crying.
I don't want to embarrass my dad. What should I do? Tell me, Ms. White.
While inwardly thinking it's not my problem, I watched her crying.
Shall I tell your father about all the harassment you've inflicted on our company? I'm sorry. Please, no more. I'll apologize as many times as needed.
She continued to cry.
Ms. Smith, you've always looked down on us because you're the president's daughter, right? Be honest.
She shook her head desperately, denying it.
You think we, the secondary contractors, would believe that? I didn't mean it that way. But if it seemed like that, I'm sorry.
I watched her pitiful figure for a while, but as she didn't stop crying, I left her and went back to my work. By evening, she was gone.
She's gone. My retribution is over.
I muttered to myself and headed home. Carol, due to the catalog incident, faced a barrage of complaints from companies and was apparently fired by her father, the president. Her company suffered significant losses and a drop in revenue, as expected. Thanks to my friend Olivia, I was saved in many ways. Having actually resigned from the secondary contractor, I'm now helping with Olivia's educational outreach, and through her referral, have managed to step up to a sales position at a larger company. I'm truly grateful to her and treasure our connection as I continue to work hard.